that. This is breaking at 7 tonight. Mass State Police say that 3 troopers are under investigation related to the Karen Reed case. Detective Lieutenant Brian Tully, Lieutenant John Fanning, and Sergeant Yuri Buchanan. They are each subject to active internal affairs investigation. State Police say each of them remain on full duty at this hour.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Crime in Court. My name is Heather, and this is episode 64 of the Canton Cover-Up. And we are going to be talking tonight about, was there possible jury tampering that happened at the Karen Reed trial? So this is the Commonwealth versus Karen Reed and Commonwealth versus Aiden Turtleboy Carney. We talk about him too because they're very, very much related. And so tonight, as you can see from the thumbnail, that is Trooper John or Lieutenant John Fanning. So he is potentially maybe, well, we'll see. So he might have found himself in some trouble. So I just played for you a clip from the what news station was that? WCVB. Channel 5 in Boston. So that was just a brief little clip about what happened. This was 2 weeks ago, July 23rd. The MSP announced that they were doing some internal investigations on some specific individuals that are related to the Karen Reed case and possibly even the Sandra Birchmore case. So I wanted to bring to you tonight something, it's breaking news regarding the jury tampering possibility and the fact that just Fanning alone, I wanted to bring to you a little bit more about Fanning so you know about who Trooper Fanning is. Sorry, I can't do 2 things at once. All right. I used to be able to be so good at multitasking, and then you get a autoimmune disease and your whole life changes. Anyways, all right, so let's get started. Let me shrink myself here, and so I just wanted to reiterate. So the MSP on July 23rd came out with this particular statement. They said the Massachusetts State Police confirms that Detective Lieutenant Brian Tully, Lieutenant John Fanning, and Sergeant Yuri Buchanan are each the subject of an active internal affairs investigation. The department respectfully declines further comment in fairness to the integrity of the process and pending investigative outcomes. The troopers remain on full duty at this time, so they're fully active duty right now, which is odd when you're under an internal affairs investigation, especially for something this nationwide that people are looking. So why are they allowed to continue to go around and harass people, as some of them are doing, to try to get them on witness intimidation? You're Buchanan, I'm talking to you. All right, so we've gone over that in another episode. He was just trying to get some women to cave and say that, Turtle Boy made me do it. It was witness intimidation, whatever. It didn't work. So, and he's continuing to do it to this day. He's trying to harass people into caving to turn on Turtle Boy for some reason. They have a thing. They really hate Turtle Boy because he's exposing them. So it's crazy that the ones that he's exposing are the ones that are trying to take him down. Think about that. All right, so the department respectfully declines further comment in fairness, blah, blah. Troopers remain on full active duty. The state police followed up later that evening. So that statement was put out during the day, and then later that evening, they're like, hey, we're going to backtrack. Lieutenant Fanning's no longer, his investigation's no longer active. So they closed it, or whatever they call it. We're going to see. So they continue saying the department's internal affairs investigation determined that there was insufficient evidence to prove or disprove the allegation that Lieutenant Fanning violated rules and regulations by failing to uphold the responsibilities of a supervisory role. Remember, this allegation has been classified as unfounded. So remember, Lieutenant Fanning was on the uh, text chain that had uh, other individual, Yuri Buchanan and Trooper Proctor. They were all going back and forth and saying all these horrible things about Karen. And they're his supervisors, Trooper Proctor's supervisors, Yuri Buchanan and Lieutenant Fanning, Lieutenant Tully, they're all superiors to him. None of them acted in a way to stop him from talking about a suspect that way or to not send them nudes. They were probably sitting there waiting for him. So, yeah, think about that. what if Trooper Proctor had found nudes? They'd probably be in a whole lot more trouble right now. Anyways, so according to this statement, Lieutenant Fanning is no longer under investigation for whatever reason. They found it unfounded. Maybe because Lieutenant Fanning isn't his direct supervisor, so it wouldn't necessarily be his responsibility, but as a supervisor in that organization, it's his responsibility to step up and, report that this was going on. So he should have done something instead of, I think he laughed or he might have commented on something. I don't know. But so that was regarding the whatever this internal affairs investigation is. But he should be under internal affairs investigation anyways because he's related to the Sandra Birchmore case. And I'm going to pop over to this real quick. If you're not familiar with the Sandra Birchmore case, I have started a deep dive into this case. I'll link it below or tag it to this video, whatever. And you guys can, if you are local or if you need a new show to get into, let's do a deep dive on the Sandra Birchmore case. So Sandra she was a 23-year-old woman who was found deceased in 2021 in Canton. So this was just about a year prior to John O'Keefe, to the incident where John O'Keefe lost his life, whatever that incident may be. It wasn't a car crash, we know that. So this was about a year before John, and Sandra Birchmore, she was from Stoughton. She had lived in Canton though at the time of this, when she was found deceased. They believed that it was a self-deletion. However, just recently, a new forensic pathologist, Michael Baden, who is actually like world renowned and has been doing this his whole life, and I think he's like in his 70s or 80s. He's come out and after reviewing all the case information, he has said that he does not think that Sandra took her life. Most pregnant women wouldn't. She was pregnant about 3 months long, I think. And she had told Matthew Fanning, the man who she had been groomed by and essayed by since she was about 15 years old. She knew them all since she was 13. They probably started grooming her at 13. So she met Matthew Farwell and his twin brother William Farwell and Robert Devine through this Explorers program that was run through the police department, the Stoughton Police Department, and Robert Devine was the person running this. So he oversaw the whole program, and under him, he brought in Matthew and William Farwell to be guest teachers or instructors for this program. Sandra had already always loved law enforcement. She always admired them, wanted to be one. She wanted to be an officer of the law. So she had joined this program for those reasons. And then these three men, we know because it has been disclosed from an internal investigation. I'm not just like alleging this. This happened. These three men were grooming and essaying Sandra from the time she was a young girl and underage. We know Matthew Farwell and her were having intimate relations by the time she was 15. He denied it. He would not take a DNA test. So there's that. Um, he won't admit to being the father. He actually had a baby, his third baby with his wife, delivered the very next day after Sandra, um, after the last day that her phone did anything, had any kind of actions taken. And this Matthew Farwell was the last person in her apartment shortly before her phone stopped doing anything, before she stopped using her phone. So it's very clear to me that it is not likely she took her own life, and this Matthew Farwell allegedly may have done something to her. Here's the alleged part because I don't know for sure what happened in that apartment. Um, but we do know for sure that they groomed and essayed Sandra, these three men. So, trying to make this, not get into a whole Sandra episode. So definitely go check out my Sandra episodes. I go through all the court documents and some timelines and who all the key players are in this, and do a little deep dive into like all the guys that are involved in this. We go over like their bios and stuff. Where was I going with that? So Sandra Birchmore, this happens in 2021, and all these allegations are coming forward that it was Farwell, blah, blah, blah. So according to this Boston Globe article, I'm not going to read the whole thing. This was a recent article, I think, talking about how they found, they now believe that it wasn't self-inflicted. So I'm just going to read this short paragraph. This is the only thing I wanted to share with you. So, allegations that Matthew Farwell, may have had relations with Birchmore when she was as young as 15, and yes, that would be statutory R, were investigated by State Police Lieutenant John Fanning. So, the allegations into the Farwell brothers was done by John Fanning. So this is the guy we're talking about tonight. This is John Fanning. And and again, no charges were ever brought by Norfolk District Attorney Michael Morrissey. So let's be clear. Robert Devine has never faced any charges for having relations with an underage girl. Matthew Farwell has never had any charges brought to him for the same thing. And William Farwell, same thing. None of them have had charges brought to them on what they did to Sandra, which is they've all lost their jobs at the Stone Police, but they are still out in public, in society, roaming the streets, potentially grooming and essaying other people. So there's that. Stoughton Police for not doing something, well, really, it's on Michael Morrissey because he'd be the one pressing charges on these state actors that have gone bad, but he didn't because Michael Morrissey likes corruption. He is the face of corruption in Massachusetts. So that was the only thing I was going to say. Oh, what does he say here? Investigators were able to identify where and how long Matthew Farwell spent engaging in relations when he otherwise claimed that he was on duty and purportedly working, according to Fanning in his affidavit. But he said investigators could not find probable cause against two other Stoughton police officers, William Farwell and Devine, on similar on duty conduct. So, um, so Lieutenant Fanning investigated these individuals who are obviously bad actors and pretty much said, we can't determine anything on these other two guys. Surprisingly, there was probably something that they just couldn't deny, some kind of evidence that they couldn't deny that proved Matt Farwell and her were having relations when she was 15. But as for William Farwell and Robert Devine, they never put it in a text, or it was never provable, but they probably were, is my assumption, but I can't be sure. So that is a brief story about Sandra Birchmore. There's definitely more to it. Please go check out my series if you want to learn more. And other creators talk about her a lot too. So people are starting to talk about her more and say her name. Sorry, dogs are jumping. Dogs are being crazy. Um, I don't remember what I was saying now. They totally interrupted me. So yes, check out Sandra Birchmore wherever you can. More and more people are talking about her. Say her name. That's the thing. Say her name because in a recent post commission, which is like the oversight for instructing officers and giving them their certifications, they recently had a post commission hearing with William Farwell and his attorneys, and he wants to remain certified as an officer of the law. Right now, he is not certified, which means he's pending these investigations. But so in the process, dogs keep interrupting me and making me lose my train of thought. Sorry. So he's trying to decertify himself, or he's trying to get certified, and obviously, the state is against it, and the people for the post commission probably wants to do something to penalize him. I don't know. But anyways, so I keep losing my train of thought. Give me a second. They totally lost me here. All right. At the post commission hearing, William Farwell's attorney was fighting so hard. This just happened like recently, so it's on my mind. The attorney was fighting so hard to not let Sandra Birchmore's name into the proceedings. They're like, we don't want her name. It's just prejudicial. It's just going to cause, emotional reactions from people, which I think is BS. So say Sandra Birchmore. Say it 3 times in a row. Sandra Birchmore, Sandra Birchmore, Sandra Birchmore. That's for her. And we're not going to stop saying her name. All right. So this leads me to breaking story for today. And this Turtle Boy has the worst website. So there's and Turtle Boy, I love you. I'm sorry, but your pop-up ads suck. And it's so slow. So I'm gonna close all my other tabs here. All right, so this is the breaking news story. Canton Cover-Up Part 387. This is Turtle Boy's blog. He's really, it's like a news article. Because he confirms his stuff. So you can call it a blog or you can call it journalism, either one. Canton Cover-Up Part 387. Conflicted State Police Lieutenant John Fanning was in charge of eliminating juror who intended to acquit Karen Reed. That's pretty big news. This was a picture of Fanning when they were coming to arrest Turtle Boy in front of the bus stop. His kid's bus stop, I should say. That's so bogus. That was so bogus. All right, so this is John Fanning. Multiple reliable sources have reported to Turtle Boy Daily News that Lieutenant John Fanning, one of Michael Proctor's supervisors from the Norfolk County DA's office, was in charge of overseeing the jury during the Karen Reed trial. He was also the reason a juror who seemed inclined to vote not guilty was dismissed on the final day of the trial. So first of all, I'm just going to say, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I knew something fishy was going on with the jurors. I knew it. All the jurors, supposedly that were pro Karen Reed, ended up getting booted the last day of trial right before deliberations. So two of them got booted from the jury, and one of them got put in the as the non-deliberating jurors, the alternates. All right, so um, did I read that? One of Proctor's supervisors was in charge of overseeing. Yeah, okay, so he was the reason that the juror got dismissed. As I reported through, as you see all these pop-ups, as I reported throughout the trial, there were two jurors in particular, both women, who made facial reactions who showed that they were visibly disgusted with Michael Proctor during his testimony. So amazing that those are the women that got booted. So Proctor testifies that neither he nor Buchanan tampered with Karen Reed's taillight. Juror number 3 visibly rolls her eyes. There is no way any of these 17 people will vote to convict Reed. No way. So that was Dr. Turtleboy. These are his tweets from the live from the jury courtroom. That was June 10th, and that was the day, obviously, or one of the days that Proctor was on the stand. Here he says, juror number 3 just nodded her head in anger and disgust as Alan Jackson reads all of the horrible things that Michael Proctor has texted about Karen Reed. Juror number 12 buried her head in her hands. There is no need for this to continue. The jury is ready to acquit now. Does anybody wonder if Aiden and other reporters that were in there that were live tweeting and reporting on the jurors' reactions, does anybody wonder if they put them as, like, set them up as a target, almost like inadvertently, not knowing it, that they put a target on their backs for getting eliminated by this corrupt system? It's so ridiculous. Aiden goes on to tweet on that same day, Proctor just had to read a text that he wrote saying that he went through Karen Reed's phone and was disappointed that he didn't find naked pictures of her. Juror 3 shook her head in disgust, mouthed something, and looked away. Juror 12 opened her mouth in shock, rolled her eyes, and looked away from him in disgust. There is no coming back from this. Again, until you see the jurors' faces, you can't understand how truly over this is. This is why everybody was saying it's a shoo-in. She's going to be acquitted on all counts within an hour, maybe two. Maybe they want a meal. This is why everybody was like gung ho, Karen's not guilty. And then what happens? So so this was something Buchanan was on the stand that same day. He said that video isn't missing, it's just not recorded. So the missing video that's missing it's not missing, it's just not recorded. And juror 3, who looks like highly educated and is always alert, visibly laughs. The jury knows he is a joke. So because these people laugh or show disgust in the MSP witnesses that are on the stand, who really should be criminals, um, they get booted or something. Let's read on. If I could see their reactions, then so could Paul O'Keefe, Proctor, Brian Albert, Yuri Buchanan, Brian Tully, Jennifer McCabe, and every other person who didn't want to see Karen Reed acquitted of homicide. On the final day of trial, Brian Albert, Colin Albert, and Jennifer McCabe sat with the O'Keefe family, which was crazy. Crazy. And they were staring the jury down as Alan Jackson's talking about how corrupt Brian is over there. and a cover, and just past his shoulder, you could see Brian Albert looking like he's gonna take everybody out in the court. Crazy. It had to have been intimidating to look back into their eyes. You hadn't seen them for weeks, and suddenly they just show up out of nowhere. On the final day, they sat with the O'Keefe family. At last, one juror, or at least one juror, reported, blah, 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 mouth, do what the brain says. At least one juror reported feeling intimidated by Brian Albert staring him down. Juror number 3, who shook her head and mouthed, "What?" seemingly in disbelief while Trooper Joseph Paul was explaining his theory of how John O'Keefe got his injuries from a motor vehicle collision, was brought into the courtroom prior to the jury being seated. So this is the final day of trial, right before closings, and they were taking a while to get started, and we all were like, "What's going on?" This is what was going on. So they brought in this juror 3. Um, where was I? She seemed agitated with what Judge Canoni told her and dismissed. She was dismissed as a juror shortly thereafter. So she gets brought into the courtroom after she's been like one of the most vocal, visibly annoyed or frustrated people with the Commonwealth witnesses. And here she is getting booted the very day of deliberations. So Eden Carney tweeted June 25th, juror number 3, nicknamed Pam Beasley, is standing with her arms crossed 5 feet from Judge Canoni as she huddles with the attorneys. She seems upset, and it appears as if they might be kicking her off the jury. This would be an injustice. Breaking news. So this is, what, a minute later. Breaking news. Number jury 3 was, this was right before, a minute before, was just brought up to the front to speak with Judge Canoni. This is by far the most obvious not guilty vote on the jury. She made disgusting facial reactions during Michael Proctor's testimony and mouthed, "What?" while shaking her head during Trooper Paul's testimony. I probably wouldn't have been able to stop myself from doing the same. Just saying. All right, so I can now report with certainty that John Fanning reported to a court officer that this juror was allegedly speaking about the case weeks prior at a bar. So then why was she not brought in weeks prior? And that the alleged infraction was caught on video. However, Fanning did not sign or write an affidavit swearing to this, nor did he provide the video to the court. So just on Trooper Fanning's words, this woman is let go from the jury. That is such an injustice. And mind you, this guy is in charge of the jury. He goes back and forth with them on the bus, which is probably who leaked information to the Albert or to the McAlberts. The one, he was probably the one who, because he rode on the bus, and so he could probably hear them all saying, "Yeah, we were not guilty on this, but we were guilty on this for," or 9 to 3 on whatever charge, and that's probably how that leaked. Because the Alberts knew before everybody else. So yeah, it's all just very strange. What is a lieutenant, first of all, doing in charge of jury duty? In fact, he was a witness, so he should have been called to the stand, but they just never called him. But he could have been at any time by both the Commonwealth or the defense could have called him because he was on both of their witness lists, I believe. So I don't, maybe he was on defense. I think so. So I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know any of this. I don't know why Commonwealth does anything the way that they do it. But why would a lieutenant be in charge of jury duty? It just doesn't make any sense. You would, you're paying this high salary for a guy to sit on a bus with jurors and bus them back and forth all day, and he's just sitting. I don't think so. That's usually probably not protocol. I don't know. I'm not a Massachusetts State Police officer, but probably not protocol that you send your high-ranking officers to go sit jury duty. Just a thought. All right, so Turtle Boy continues on saying, I can now report with certainty that John Fanning reported to a court officer that the juror was allegedly speaking about the case at a bar weeks prior and that the infraction was caught on video. He never gave the video. In fact, Cannoni did not speak with Fanning at all. So Fanning reported it to a court officer. The court officer told it to Judge Cannoni, and Judge Cannoni was like, okay, she's out. Really, Cannoni? She simply took his secondhand story as fact and dismissed a juror who gave up 10 weeks of her life in order to perform her civic duty. This juror seemed adamant about Reed's innocence and based on her body language, and if she was visibly unconvinced by Trooper Paul's testimony in particular, then that means she believes John wasn't struck by Karen's car. That would mean she was a not guilty on manslaughter as well as the homicide, the second degree homicide. One can infer, based on her behavior, that she would have been a vocal leader as a juror, as opposed to a passive juror who was easily bullied and swayed. This is significant because several jurors have signed affidavits swearing that the vote was 6-6 on the manslaughter before bullying began, which led to 2 or 3 jurors switching their votes to guilty on the manslaughter. A strong willed, loudly opinionated voice in favor of not guilty would have convinced jurors to change their vote to a not guilty. So that's why they didn't want her on the trial, on the jury, on the deliberating jury. So they had to get rid of her. It's ridiculous. And it's amazing that the other, like every single person that seemed to be pro Karen Reed, like facial, visibly during the trial, they all got booted the day of or prior. It's just crazy. All right. So additionally, juror number 3 was also the same juror who reported juror number 5 on June 14th, leading to that juror's dismissal. So well, here he explains it. Reliable sources have confirmed that Juror 5 said in the presence of all the other jurors that she was bothered by Karen Reed turning around and smiling so much at her family. 3 jurors, 3, 12, and 13, 3 jurors, numbers 3, 12, and 13, reported her for making those comments. All of them were called up to speak with Judge Cannoni about this, and as luck would have it, these were the exact 3 jurors who were eliminated and or made alternates on the final day of the trial. It's outrageous that someone with such a vested interest in the outcome of this case as Lieutenant Fanning, who could have even been a witness, who is friends with and works with some of the most controversial witnesses in this case, would be in charge of the jury. So he's friends with, like, the Alberts, for instance. I think he's friends with, I mean, everybody's friends with Kevin Albert, it seems, and Brian Albert. Like, everybody wants to know Brian. So I don't know. There's so many ties in these towns. It's like so interconnected, these relationships. Fanning was on the group text with Proctor, where Proctor admitted to going through David Yanetti's, quote, I don't want to say that word, our client's phone looking for naked pictures of Reed. He said nothing to admonish his underlings, sorry. He said, Lieutenant Fanning said nothing to admonish his underlings for this egregious ethical violation. Neither did Brian Tully, who was also on that um, text chain. And Lieutenant Tully uh, does oversee Proctor. So Fanning was also a listed witness for the Commonwealth and participated in the investigation of Karen Reed. He testified as at 2 of Turtle Boy's grand juries. Lieutenant Fanning. He was at my house with Brian Tully the day that I was arrested. He searched my home and found my notes indicating that he and other members of the state police were being investigated by the U.S. Attorney's Office. So they were really just trying to get his info. Fanning took part in the interrogation of former Avon police dispatcher Janelle Webb, took her phone without a warrant, and looked through her messages with Turtle Boy in order to indict her on bogus conspiracy to commit witness intimidation charges. To this day, 8 months later, Webb has never been arraigned. They never had any intention of actually prosecuting her. They just needed to indict her on a conspiracy charge because they can indict me on a conspiracy charge if they don't have a second party that I allegedly conspired with. That makes sense. They needed someone that could be a conspirator with him. All right, so Fanning was also seen at the home. So yeah, Janelle Webb, I just wanted to say, she looked up the license plate for Jen McCabe and confirmed that it was Jen McCabe's car in front of Proctor's house during an open investigation or during an well, I don't know if it's still an open investigation if they consider Karen being arrested, the case closed. But technically, it's still an open case because, in my mind, they didn't catch the real people. But I don't know. They must have closed it. I don't know. Random thoughts by me. Sorry. But anyways, where was I? Um, the Janelle Webb. She took I think somebody took a photo of a car that was parked in front of Proctor's home. This is what happened. And I think Turtle Boy put it out on social media, and then somebody was like, I'm on it. And that was Janelle Webb. And she was like, okay, this was Jen McCabe's because she ran it in her from her position at the Avon Police Dispatch Office. And she lost her job, and they put these dumb conspiracy to witness intimidate. I don't know, to intimidate a witness. It's ridiculous because Jen McCabe's a witness. Come on, please. We know that they're suspects. They should all be suspects. The people inside that house. Anyways, Fanning was also seen at the homes of several citizens with Trooper Buchanan demanding to know if they ever messaged Jennifer McCabe or Elizabeth Proctor. That's what I was talking about before, that they're going around harassing people. Additionally, he oversaw the botched Sandra Birchmore investigation, which was wrongly determined to be a self deletion and has since been taken over by the Attorney General's office after it has now been considered a homicide by Dr. Michael Baden. It hasn't actually changed, so I don't know if like the determination or the manner in which she lost her life has not changed on like the official death certificate, but there are reports from Dr. Michael Baden, a uh, independent forensic pathologist who went out and did he evaluated everything like I said, and he determined that it was not a self-deletion, and that was just recently, like in the last couple months. And so I think now the AG's office has confirmed that it is an open investigation still into Sandra Birchmore, Karen Reed, and John O'Keefe. That I don't think so, but for Sandra Birchmore, um, it's an open investigation because they are not accepting the AG's office is not accepting the self-deletion manner of death. All right, so it's pure corruption that someone as invested in the Reed trial as Fanning was would be able to handpick a juror for removal who made it be known through her body language that she intended to be a strong voice for acquittal in the deliberation room, right? He has he shouldn't be nowhere near this jury, first of all. Second of all, Noni never should have just taken some secondhand story without some kind of proof. So corruption runs deep in Massachusetts, guys. All right, so if the video of Juror 3 talking about the case at a bar doesn't actually exist, then it's blatant corruption on the part of Trooper Fanning. However, if it does exist, then it should have been given to the judge and reviewed, but it wasn't. And if it does exist, then who took the video? And more importantly, how did they recognize juror three? Which is a fantastic question. And why did it take 3 weeks or whatever for him to report it? If you weren't inside that courtroom, you wouldn't be able to identify any of the jurors in public. This would mean that if the video does exist, that juror three, and likely every other juror, was followed by someone from the state police. That is a scary thought, my friends. The state police following the jurors because she probably couldn't deny that she was at a bar that night, is what the problem was. Like they say, oh, yeah, we saw so and so, juror three, at a bar on whatever night, such and such, and she can't deny it because she was actually there. But then if she denies saying it, it just seems, what do you believe? And so the judge is going to let her go regardless. Such bullshit. Ugh, such bull what these people are doing. It is so corrupt there. How else would they have? I mean, I'm in Chicago. There's enough corruption here, but I don't want to get involved in it. I don't want to be like Turtle Boy and getting myself involved into right into a prison cell. I can't believe he went to jail for 60 days. 60 days for reporting on these people. And they're still corrupt. And he's still reporting on them. And they're still doing their corrupt things. Anyways. So how else would they happen to know what bar she was at and on a certain date? Juror three would have been able to tell Canoni that she never went to a bar, if she, in fact, she did. So she would not be able to deny it. If, half of it's true, then it's like, oh, well, must be true then. It sounds like the most likely scenario is that the state police knew juror three was at a specific blah, blah, blah. Start again. It sounds like the most likely scenario is that the state police knew juror three was at a specific bar on a specific date, and they made up the story about having a video to have her kicked off the jury. That way, juror three couldn't deny being at a bar. Other questions I have. Does the Commonwealth often invite listed witnesses? Fanning was listed as a witness but never called into homicide trials to oversee the juries of those trials. Probably not, I would say. But this is the Commonwealth, so who knows? Or only in cases where they've been accused of corruption and investigated by the FBI. Because remember, Fanning was being investigated by the FBI for his involvement in the text messages. But now, just maybe, the FBI might reopen their investigation into him, or state police reopen their internal investigation on him, and find out uh, his role in all of this. Find out what he did, his role in jury tampering, potentially, allegedly. So, why was someone as high ranking as Lieutenant John Fanning chosen to oversee the jury? It seems like a bitch job. So, why? I didn't say that. Turtle Boy did. So, why couldn't state police stick some rookie on it? Why not a trooper from Westfield Barracks with no ties to Norfolk? That would have been ideal. Someone from a different jurisdiction, different county. And what was I just going to say about that? Like I was saying, you've got this lieutenant. So he's a high ranking individual and he's getting paid well. So he's just sitting there and getting paid to sit on a bus when he's got supposedly, he's got talents in order to become a lieutenant. You have experience and talents to get to that position, supposedly, in law enforcement. And wouldn't you want his talents and skills being utilized to their most effective and efficient manner instead of sitting on a bus with jurors? I don't know. Just saying. All right, so why did the state police have anything to do with any trial proceedings? Shouldn't the court be in charge of that? Shouldn't they have assigned a white shirt court officer to do the job Fanning was tasked to do? And that is what a lot of analysts and content creators and people have been saying. Attorneys have been saying that there are court officers that are, neutral people that work for the courthouse that could have been put on those bus rides, or they could have gotten some kind of detail from a different jurisdiction. It would have been very simple to do, but no, they went with John Fanning. And you know that Judge Cannone had, oh, what if there's a tie between Judge Cannone and Fanning? What if she had Fanning put there to get rid of any kind of like really pro Karen Reed jurors, and maybe Fanning did some real tampering. I don't know, but maybe he had some conversations with some people to hold out for a manslaughter charge or something. I don't know, cuz how else did they do that without, I don't know. They just must not have had common sense, the nine people that went with it. I don't know. So then again, conflicts of interest are nothing new to the Norfolk County officials. The entire basis of a cover up of John O'Keefe's homicide revolves around conflicts of interest. Michael Proctor is a close family friend of the Alberts and was offered a thank you gift by Julie Albert on the day that Karen Reed was arrested. Brian Tully played college football with Paul O'Keefe. Brian Tully played college football with Paul O'Keefe. Yuri Buchanan's brother is close friends with Kevin and Brian Albert. Not, but none of this mattered to the Norfolk County DA's office, so it's not surprising that John Fanning was in charge of overseeing the jury in Karen Reed's trial. And it's certainly not surprising that he handpicked a juror for removal who was going to vote to acquit the defendant. I believe that's the end of his article. Yes, and well done, Aiden. You can go to his blog and give him a donation if you choose. Um, he does some good work, and I recently just gave him a dono just for the fact that, like, I use him as a resource all the time. All right. So I'll just leave Fanning on the screen as I chit chat and talk you guys out. So that's all I have for you tonight regarding John Fanning and the corruption that's going on regarding some possible jury tampering, or at least removing a juror that might have been pro Karen Reed. But then I also wish that Turtle Boy would go into some research into the two others that were made alternates that morning, because there's something so fishy about that. The two remaining people that were very pro Karen Reed became alternate jurors with the pick of some numbers. And it makes me wonder if all the numbers in there were those two numbers. It just I wouldn't be surprised. And I would hope that they actually got to see the numbers that were in the little, because it was like a little, like what you get a lottery ball and you roll it around. So they randomly picked two numbers out of it, and those were the other jurors who were pro Karen Reed, like visibly having reactions to the disgusting pieces of crap that were on the stand, who called themselves law enforcement. So, and I'm pro law enforcement. I don't want people to think that I just hate all law enforcement. I am pro law enforcement. I support their positions in this community. I support what they do. I just don't support the corrupt ones. There's a reason why that job is so sacred and special. And it takes a special person to fill those shoes. You can't be so easily corrupted, but it's going to take a while. It took many, many years for Massachusetts to get this bad. It's going to take many, many years for them to get better. But I do believe that the FBI is watching. The FBI is collecting data, doing their investigations as we speak. I really do believe that there is going to be some resolution with the feds at some point in time. It may or may not be before the next Karen Reed trial, which is scheduled for January of next year. But I do believe that there is going to be redemption coming and there's going to be justice eventually for Karen Reed, for John O'Keefe, for Turtle Boy, for the people of Massachusetts. Time for them to take their damn state back. Get it back. Take it back. Take it back from those corrupt MFers. And on that note, I will leave you guys. So thank you so, so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye now.